Hello Prakash sir, welcome to Bollywood Global. And how are you doing? How is everything going with you?
Very good. Although this COVID lockdown and not working is very depressing because any artist must be in connect with the society, his audience, and we should be in connect with each other to be able to work together. So not to go on stage, not to be shooting is, not to be meeting people is very depressing.
Okay. And your new film, Graham Stains, Ek Kai Sachai, it released recently on Shimarumi box office. You play the role of an editor of a news daily in this film. So I want to know, how did this film come to you, and at what stage did it reach you? Was it the idea level, the scripting level, or once everything was locked?
It came out of the blue, actually, because it came from people I had never met, I had no contact with. The director, Anish had watched me in some other film, and he decided that I should play that role. So it came out of the blue, but I thought it was an interesting role to play, and a very important incident to be working. So for anybody to ignore such a horrendous crime would have been, a lack of courage, I would say. So such a film was made, and I'm glad that I had the opportunity to participate in such a venture.
And your character in this film is complex and has darker shades. So I'm interested to know what territories of the subconscious you venture into while bringing such characters to life.
The problem of identity, which is at the core of this, okay? The thing is, whether it's missionaries converting or whether it's ghar wapsi or whether it's love jihad, this is concerned with identity that you have actually not chosen. You may pretend that you have chosen this identity, but actually it's given to you at birth. Your religious identity, your race, your color, your caste, everything is given to you at birth. You may... In this country, even if you change your religion, you can't change your caste. Okay, so but we don't. Humans have this avidya. We have this belief that we have chosen this, and we try to justify the identities that we have been given. Actually, we had no control over it. What are you trying to justify? There's a very good novel by Rabindranath Tagore called Gora. It's called one of the seminal foundational novels of modern India, in which at the end, he's a kind of Hindu fanatic, Vaishnava fanatic is. But at the end, he realizes that he's not even Bharatiya. That he's actually an Irishman who's been adopted, but he's never been told that. So when he's told that at the end, he has to make a choice about what his identity means to him. Of course, Tagore finishes it very well. But the thing is, this is the problem of identity. You're given it to even at that you have it's at birth you get it, you have no control over it, and you keep defending what you cannot defend, I mean, it may be good, it may be bad. I mean, which identity is good or bad? I'm not a religious person, for me, so I don't care that much. But on this question, you must remember, people all over the world have gone to wars. We have fought wars on the question of religion. In this country, we've had riots and fought battles on the question of language. We have fought battles we have made linguistic states on the basis of not growing diversity, but on the basis of fighting. We obtained it from one guy fasting to death in the border of modern Karnataka and modern Andhra. So what I'm trying to say is that on any question on skin color, now we are fighting the battle of the sexes. Even today we are talking about Black Lives Matter. It's like senseless. You can't even control that identity, but you're fighting for it all the time. It is such a question that actually eventually takes the lives of Graham Stains and his two kids. I think to reckon with it is the duty of any mature thinking society. So I really wish this film had been done earlier, closer to when it happened, but maybe everything, all wounds take time to heal, and maybe we needed this many years to actually even to have the courage to look at what happened.
Yeah.
Although it's fictionalized and all that, it's based on a true incident. So yeah, I'm glad I was asked, and I'm glad I worked in the film.
Okay. So you have been a journalist yourself, sir, and this is one profession which requires tremendous sense of responsibility. Because it all boils down to communicating with people. So I would want to know from you that what should a journalist do when he or she is being constantly harassed by the system, and there's really no one to listen to them except for a small set of people who themselves are powerless sometimes.
See, journalists are employees eventually, and they're working for salaries. You can be, of course, be a freelance journalist, but you have very limited freedom if you're a freelance journalist,
True.
So basically, journalists are really, you can talk about in a free press, but let's be honest, it's very difficult to be free. So how do journalists work? I'll give you an example. I live in Bangalore, and for many years of my youth and middle age, I've seen that Karnataka and Tamil Nadu keep fighting over waters of the Kaveri, especially in the summer months when the rain hasn't come yet or the monsoon has failed. Then it becomes very hard, and then the dispute becomes very acute, and we convert it to an identity issue. Like in 1991, shamefully, poor Tamilians, laborers, people who are small traders, artisans of Tamil language speaking people in Bangalore were hounded out in violence, over something they couldn't control. They had no control over their identity. They have no control over the monsoons, and certainly they have no control over Supreme Court verdicts and, calculating politicians and governments. So they were targeted. So what I'm saying is, when such a fight happens, I used to work in Bangalore as a journalist.
Yeah.
Indian Express has editions in Bangalore. Indian Express also has an edition in Chennai. So the Bengaluru Indian Express edition took the Karnataka side, and the Tamil Nadu, the Chennai Express took Tamil Nadu side. How can you have both sides? How can it be correct? The truth is that nobody is correct. Nobody is correct. It is something to be negotiated and arrived at. And I always have felt, even those days, if farmers had been allowed to talk to each other, they would understand each other's distress. And perhaps a more amicable solution could have been worked out earlier. It's just that humans are not capable of being reasonable. What kind of a reasonable human being, with somebody with the highest IQ, will actually make a bomb? Somebody who scores really well in college, who goes to IIT or MIT in the US, who knows somebody who goes to London School of Economics, somebody who gets the Nobel Prize. These are the people who are planning on how to spend money to conduct wars, how to make better weapons to kill more people. What kind of a person with... See, that is why there is a very big difference between buddhi and vivek. See, viveka is like wisdom. Whereas buddhi, with buddhi you can make bombs. You need viveka to use that money not to make bombs, but to maybe to build hospitals or something. What I'm trying to say is that we may have brains. Humans are intelligent, perhaps, but I don't think we are wise. And we have this tendency of repeating this over and over again. If you actually conduct a debate on this Gramstein's film, it'll fall back into the same binaries. There'll be one side saying, "Oh, why should he come and convert people?" And on the other side, somebody will say, "No, I'm saving souls." For Jesus or whatever you believe in. I'm saying nobody will leave the other side alone.
True.
So what you have to decide here is that, does the law permit a man to come here and conduct missionary activities? The law, the Indian Constitution allows him to do that. If you don't want to allow him to do that, you go to Parliament. There is a forum to do it. You debate it and do. You can't go and burn his jeep with him and his children inside. I mean, that is like brutal violent, and it is so barbaric.
Yeah.
Okay, you have the Bharatiya Samvidhan. You go to Parliament and you sort it out. Okay, you do it in a public debate. But we are not mature. And on the other side, they will not openly claim that they're doing missionary activity.
Yeah.
They will say, no, he came here to care for lepers, which is true as well, So you can't throw out everything. Everything is not bad and everything is not good.
Yeah.
We need a reasonable debate. And that is what a film is. This is possible in art. It's not possible in life.
Yeah.
But in art, you can actually take two reasonable sides and talk. So that's why art is interesting.
So taking that further, since you spoke about Buddhi and Vivek and being reasonable in a debate, one of your good friends, Akar Patel, with whom you briefly worked in Life of Galileo, he once said this interesting thing that your lack of ideology makes you a very unpredictable and an aggressive debater, in the sense that you change the position of your arguments and counter arguments depending upon the new learnings that you get on the subject matter. So I would want to understand from you, how important is it to factor in the emotional quotient or empathy when one engages in an intellectual tussle?
See, ideology is as stupid as religion. Okay, I'm saying religion is stupid if you apply it to say, that there was a lady who was actually pregnant, but she wanted to go for an abortion because she had a medical condition and her life would be taken if she did not get aborted. But she was in Ireland, and the Catholic system there did not permit her to undergo an abortion, and she died. Okay, now that's an extremely stupid application of religion.
True.
Okay, I'm saying everything has its limits. If you are distressed about something and you want to go to a church, or you want to go to a temple, or you want to go to a mosque and you want to pray and you get a peaceful thing, I mean, it seems reasonable. I mean, to everyone, some people may want to have a drink, but you want to go and do, maybe it's good, go and do it. The problem, however, is that when you apply it to the life of other people, to the being of other people, religion and science are not together. They're completely different things.
Yeah.
Where science must operate, it must operate. Where religion can operate, let it operate. We can allow that much freedom. But we cannot allow so much freedom that it harms another person's life or career or property. You cannot allow that. This is what I mean. And ideology is like this too. The communist ideology of the mid 20th century, it has been proven to be stupid. It has not worked. Okay. You can't apply it now. I'm not saying communism is bad. You should have been updating, just like you said, with new information. You need to change the argument.
True.
But because they've fallen behind. You see, if somebody celebrates a Hindu festival, which was some 3,000, 4,000 years ago, based on that belief, and you do not agree with modern scientific belief, it'll be stupid. Christianity burnt Bruno at the stake because he said the earth is round.
Yeah.
That, the sun is at the center of the universe, right? So the thing is, every religion does this because when you apply it beyond its scope, it has limited scope. Let's be reasonable about this. Okay, it has limited scope. Okay, when you apply beyond its scope, you can't actually make a car work. You can't make COVID go away with saying "Go Corona, go." It's not going to go away. Okay, you need a vaccine or you need medicine for it, right?
True.
So what I'm trying to say is that you can talk about faith healing. If you believe in it, you don't do it. But don't apply it to your wife. Don't apply it to your children. Don't apply it to your neighbor. And if you're a politician, don't apply it to your people. To your voters. If you're the king, don't apply it to your subjects. Keep faith as a personal thing. It should not involve anybody else. Now, what happens with Akar, or who's a very close and personal friend, is that Akar is very intelligent, okay, but he sees a position very differently from me, in the sense of I do not owe allegiance to a political party, or a political ideology, or a religious doctrine. I will apply what I think is right and wrong from an ethical perspective. And for me, one of the grounds of ethical perspective is it should be by consensus.
Mhm.
It should be by negotiation, which is what
Yeah.
Parliament does.
Mhm.
See, how does democracy work? 70% of the people or 60% of the people may not have voted for Narendra Modi,
Mhm.
but he gets to become prime minister because we have some system of agreeing to let him be that.
Yes.
Okay? If you want to change the system,
Mhm.
but we come to some understanding, right? I mean, when nobody is there, also, I stop at a red signal at night because,
Yeah.
I agree to do that.
Mhm.
This is what I mean. You do it case by case,
Mhm.
incident by incident. You measure the pros and cons of every little decision
Mhm.
and then arrive at what is the best thing for the largest number of people, the greatest good for the greatest number.
Mhm.
This is one of the ethical principles you apply in a democratic setup,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Whether it's at a country level or it's at a small society level, you
Mhm.
do that. Which is why I do not trust ideology. I trust an ethical argument. I trust a caring argument, one that takes into concern all the stakeholders, in that story.
Yeah.
Which is why I can seem to take one side one day and another side another day.
Mhm.
But actually, what side I'm trying to take is what I think is the good side
Mhm.
of the story, right? That's
Yeah.
all I'm trying to say.
Mhm.
I'm not right all the time. It's quite true that I may come short of doing the absolutely perfect thing or even the right thing sometimes.
Mhm.
But it is not because of lack of honesty
Mhm.
or a lack of effort. It may be because I don't have all the facts yet.
Mhm.
I may have blind spots.
Mhm.
I'm open to a reasonable debate,
Mhm.
but I think we can participate in a debate if you're insulting each other,
Mhm.
if you get personal, you make ad hominem remarks, which means instead of arguing about the issue itself, you
Yeah,
say,
you start insulting
you
the
are
other
a
person.
bastard. You begin to insult a person on some personal thing. You drink too much or something like, which is no
Mhm.
connection with the subject that we are
Mhm.
discussing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And in your own words, you come from an amateur theatre family. So naturally, your family's outlook towards compassion, values, human emotions, or society would widely vary from that of a normal Indian household. So I want to know that with such an enriched and a refined upbringing, do you often feel out of place when you look around and see the futility of people's action, like for example the one in Graham Stains, and the absurdities that arise out of it? Do you feel out of place?
See, I'll tell you why it becomes, it's true. Yeah, I feel like completely like isolated
Mhm.
sometimes. Okay. I'll tell you why that happens. I feel that anybody who comes and does garwapsi or any missionary activity,
Mhm.
or somebody forcibly converts one person, from one religious idea to another idea,
Mhm.
is actually a nuisance person. That's my belief.
Mhm.
Okay. I'll say that. But if the law permits that guy to do that,
Mhm.
I'm willing to suffer it simply because I want to abide by the law. When I become a citizen of India,
Mhm.
I have to follow the laws of India.
Mhm.
And the laws of my country allow this man to come to this country.
Mhm.
And if he is doing missionary activity, I mean, they always claim that they weren't doing that. But if he does missionary activity,
Mhm.
he's entitled to do it. That's
Mhm.
all I will say.
Mhm.
I may not like, okay, but he's entitled to do it.
Mhm.
But the thing is, if I say I don't agree with missionary activity,
Mhm.
one side gets really angry with me.
Mhm.
Now, supposing I say you can't kill him because he does that,
Mhm.
another side gets angry with me.
Yeah.
This is what ideology or religious doctrine does to people. They lose the common ethical sense that you need to debate an issue.
Mhm.
There are never just two sides to a story.
Yeah.
There are many sides to a story.
Mhm.
There are many stakeholders.
Mhm.
See, a very important stakeholder in any story now is the environment, for instance.
Mhm.
Whatever action we are doing, whether you build a railway or you build a bridge or you build an elevated road, or you want to dredge some river or something for some infrastructure project,
Mhm.
or even if you go to a mall
Mhm.
and buy more clothes than you need,
Mhm.
or you are very particular about a certain color that you want to matching blouse, for instance, and you don't care about the dye that is being used.
Mhm.
You don't know whether that is going into the Ganga
Yeah.
and it's making it toxic. Fish are dying,
Mhm.
and maybe heavy metals are getting into the water and gets into the human chain. food chain. What I'm trying to say is that there are many stakeholders.
Yeah.
Just because you don't know who the person you're injuring with the decision you're making, it doesn't mean that person is not injured.
Yeah.
So the only way to debate is to be open, honest, and say everything you mean. Don't hide. So I will return to an earlier question that you're asking. What happens to the person who is playing that character, the editor? Is he a good guy or a bad guy? I'll tell you, eventually he's neither good nor bad. He's a weak person. He does not have the courage to face up to the contradiction and make an ethical choice. Sometimes the contradiction will be that you've always believed that your family was the best, but you thought your dad was a very good person. One day you find out that dad takes a bribe. At that time, you have the courage to say, Dad, whatever happened, whatever explanation you have is fine. But I've never spared anybody else for giving that explanation.
Yeah.
Corruption is wrong, is what I saw. I have to tell you, you're wrong. Also, you should be able to say that. You're allowed to make it. You're allowed to take a side. But when there's a contradiction between the side you've taken and the ethical beliefs that you have, you cannot try to justify it with some rubbish. See, the actor I'm playing, he says, his sons too, he says, and then he says, good, they would have grown up to grown up to convert people, he says. That's self-deception. How do you know that?
Yeah.
How can you play God, in this matter, right? So that is what happens to any one of us because we don't have the courage to face up to the contradictions in our own lives. There is always a moment when each one of us has paid a bribe.
Yeah.
We have paid a bribe even to maybe get a driver's license or to get permission from government very quickly or to, you don't have time to deal with it and you pay somebody some bribe. Now, there is a contradiction. You have to accept that this is wrong. You may have done it, but you must accept that you've done this wrong.
Yeah.
And the ethical choice you can make is if somebody really stands up to fight corruption, then you must back that person so that you're not forced to do this rubbish that you do in your life, right? And we face these dharam sankat, these contradictions in our lives on a daily basis. Everything we do, we are challenged. We have limited time. We have limited resources. And you have to make a decision that is going to please some people and is going to displease some other people, okay? And the choice you have to make at that time is the most ethical choice that you can make. It is never the perfect choice. This is life. It's full of contradictions, okay? So I feel this is possible only in art. In life, you can make compromises. But if you want to make compromises in art too, why the hell are you an artist?
Yeah.
Go be a politician or a fixer or some dalal, something you be. Why do you want to be an artist? That's the question.
Okay. And taking further, since you spoke about the environment, you have been an environmental activist yourself, you are. And so, the new EIA draft, there are a lot of things that have been put out of the ambit of, the public consultation, and it relies heavily on just the violators and the promoters in a lot of cases for, let's say, like oil and gas and shale exploration companies and mining and such other activities also. So I would want to know your views on the new EIA draft. What are your opinions on that?
See, I have been a Narendra Modi supporter. Okay, when Narendra Modi went to Paris, he quoted from the Atharva Veda. He said the Western view of environment or the developed world's view of the environment is that, he quoted from the Atharva Veda and said, we are a part of nature. We don't look at nature as an object for our benefit.
Yeah.
Nature is not something we can use for bhoga, to enjoy. We are a part of nature, so we must coexist with it, he said. Okay. The EIA that his government is putting out violates the karma that he spoke about in the Paris Agreement. Okay.
Yeah.
I continue to be a Narendra Modi supporter because I don't think on this ground alone I should reject him. But I think we should argue with him and tell him what he's doing is wrong.
Mhm.
No other government is pro-friendly, environment friendly. Remember this. No
Yeah.
one else cares. Okay?
Yeah.
Everyone talks the same. When they come to power,
Mhm.
they give you this logic that development can come only at the cost of the environment.
Yeah.
Okay?
True.
If that is the case, then I will say we have had too much development.
Mhm.
Let's backpedal a little bit now and do something for environment, bring it up to balance.
Mhm.
That's what I will say.
Mhm.
Now I will have a view of economics as well.
Mhm.
A lot of people will say, who are you? You're an actor.
Mhm.
Why should you talk about economics?
Mhm.
I will talk about anything I care about, okay?
Yeah. True.
We have two Nobel Prize economists who are Indian, okay?
Mhm.
They're both from Bengal.
Yeah.
I don't think Bengal is shining with great economic virtue, right?
True.
I don't think economists are entitled to speak out of economics either, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
Just because you went to school, you got a degree and got some recognition.
Mhm.
Are you good for the country?
Mhm.
With what you are saying is a question we must deal with, okay?
Mhm.
So I have a view of economics, okay? And that is this. There are too many people in this country.
Mhm.
We are 1/3 the size of the United States
Mhm.
and 4.5 times the population of the United States.
Yeah.
We cannot afford to consume as much as the United States can consume.
Yeah.
We're not even gifted with the same quality of natural resources.
Mhm.
We cannot think about the human development index in the way the West imagines it.
Mhm.
We must derive our own thing.
Mhm.
And what we must aim for is that instead of relieving poverty,
Mhm.
we must relieve stress.
Yeah.
That means we must give everybody basic and sufficient nutrition.
Mhm.
We must give everybody basic and sufficient health care. We must give everybody basic and useful education so that they can stand on their feet, work with their hands, and make a living. Okay, they should be skilled enough to be useful to society and make a living. We should give access to everybody to go to school, to go to their workplace, and move from one place to another. We must have reasonable transport. We cannot afford every Indian owning a car. If you have 30 Indians having 30 crore cars, 300 million cars, India will destroy the globe. Forget India. Okay? We cannot afford to live like the others. So we must not look to relieve poverty.
Mhm.
We must look to provide meet basic needs of people.
Mhm.
We should define scientifically, and that the government of the day should provide.
Mhm.
You allow competition. Let somebody buy a Ferrari and let somebody buy a Maruti 800,
Mhm.
but you allow that competition after you have given the basic needs.
Yeah.
Okay? So you must be socialist up to the point of humanity
Mhm.
and environment being in balance
Mhm.
without disturbing the environment because the poor suffer.
Mhm.
See, remember this government is required for the poorest.
Yeah.
The rich will manage. I'm not going
True.
to change my brand of liquor.
Mhm.
If Rahul Gandhi becomes prime minister, I'll still sing same brand of whiskey. Okay,
Mhm.
but the poor will be destroyed if you have bad government.
Yeah.
The poor will be destroyed with air pollution. They can't drink, mineral water. They'll be destroyed with polluted rivers because they won't have anything.
Mhm.
They'll not be able to grow food. If the ground is toxic, they will die. The poor need good government, and good government means good environment.
Mhm.
So if you have an economic theory that does not take protection of the environment and the basic needs of all the people,
Mhm.
of all living beings even, into consideration,
Mhm.
I reject the economics.
Mhm.
I think I know better.
Mhm.
Beyond that, it need not be socialist. Let it be capitalist.
Mhm.
Some people can own money and build Antilli. I don't care. No,
Mhm.
but once the basic needs are met, you allow spardha,
Mhm.
competition.
Yeah.
Before that, it is the duty of a nation
Mhm.
to look after its citizens and all its natural resources.
Mhm.
Life must have first priority. All life.
Yeah.
We cannot improve on God's creation, I think.
Mhm.
Or what if you don't believe in God, nature's creation?
Mhm.
I have said that. I will say one last thing.
Mhm.
There's a very great Marxist credo.
Mhm.
From each according to his needs,
Mhm.
to each according from each according to his abilities, to each according to their needs. This is a very great Marx. Okay, that is how a poor family runs. A mother looks after the family like that. A disabled person gets more care, more attention than a very able kid. Okay, which is the reverse of capitalism. Where which is the law of the jungle. The strongest, the fittest, and the strongest will be the wealthiest, right? Yeah, but survival of the fittest. But the thing is, in a home, we don't run like that. A mother gives extra care for the child that needs extra care, and the mother takes extra work from the child can do extra work. So a society also should be like this, I think. And I feel that's why even when I act in a film, I will ask for money if it's a commercial film, and I'm going to work for free if I think it's a really important film, and and it's a young person struggling and was passionate, wants to tell an important story. Then I'm willing to work for very little money. So I'd try to apply that principle in my life. This makes me sound like a very good person. I'm talking about good thoughts. It's a struggle and challenge for me to meet these targets that I'm setting. But at least as I'm getting older, I'll be better. I hope.
Okay. And you once spoke about a new tomorrow, which is unfolding, wherein everything will go digital and we'll have the luxury of working from our preferred spaces. Now, this pandemic has merely accelerated the arrival of that tomorrow. While going digital has its benefits, it takes a major chunk of our natural resources and the environment itself. But one cannot deny the spike in cobalt mining activities, for example, that it would bring along, because our batteries need cobalt, be it electric cars, mobile phones, laptops, portable Wi-Fi devices. They need cobalt. So the mining activity, of course, it would witness a spike. Along with that, there's also lies a threat about the exploitation of vulnerable or eco-sensitive lands for the installation of massive data centers if the world entirely goes digital at once. So now that we are starting a new journey, we are drifting towards a new tomorrow, and it's always better to work along and improve yourself while you're starting afresh. What solutions would you suggest to combat these two problems?
See, it's an extension of what your previous question was to me. See, Mahatma Gandhi said, there is enough in nature for every man's need, but not for anyone's greed.
Yeah.
So the thing is that looking after the environment is not actually like just creating more efficient systems. It also means reducing your consumption. Why should you consume so much?
Yeah.
Why should you want more than, say, 3 or 4 pairs of clothes? Why should you want this home? Why should you have a home with a compound around it where you're growing trees or plants that are not from your region, that should be artificially maintained, that needs some chemical fertilizer and manure, that needs to make another place toxic? You're absolutely right. When you get electric cars, the city will be clean.
Yeah.
But where you're generating electricity is polluting somebody else.
Yeah.
You take waste out of the city. 4,000 tons of solid waste every day is taken out of Bangalore city and dumped in the surrounding villages.
Yeah.
Okay. 2,500 liters of sewage water, toxic water, with industrial waste is sent out to low-lying lands all around Bangalore, because Bangalore is 3,000 feet above the sea level. Now, the thing is, like, you can't live in such a way that, I'm going on the flyover, this is so beautiful, but, my rubbish is going to the ground below where poor people live. What kind of justice is this?
Yeah.
By what religion, by what doctrine is this justice? Saying reduce your needs. There is no need to be flying faster than everybody else, on an integrated road. Go cycle to work. If you can't cycle that much, buy a house that is closer to your workplace. If you don't want to buy a house, rent a house as long as you work in that place, and you wear Bermudas and cycle to work, okay? Why the hell do you want to live 50 kilometers away and drive in, your Innova car, and you're complaining about traffic? Don't complain about the traffic. You are the traffic, right? So I'm saying the solution is to look inwards. Today, somebody has posted on Facebook. I saw this morning. He says, the PM is from BJP. My MP is from BJP. My chief minister is from BJP. This is in Karnataka. And my MLA is from BJP. And look at the garbage in front of my house. That's what he's put. Neither the PM, nor the MP, nor the CM, nor the MLA put that garbage there. It is you and your neighbors who put that garbage there. Okay? He's saying 6 years of Swachh Bharat. See the state in front of my house. Who put that garbage there? You are the garbage maker. Right? If you didn't put that garbage there, if you're a more responsible citizen, or if you got your street to be more responsible, that wouldn't have happened. This whole thing is that Prime Minister has built the toilet, he's not giving water, is that. You need to figure it out at your level also, like how you use it.
Yeah.
I think the government can do some things. Most of it we have to do ourselves, I think.
Yeah, true.
So I think you consume less. Don't buy plastic. Take a bag and go and buy, put vegetables in that. Take a cloth bag and go. Okay. Why is it fashionable to buy that carry that branded plastic bag? Don't buy things that have so much packaging. Maybe it's poisonous for you. Processed food is poisonous. Anything that needs packaging and needs preservatives, and that is toxic for you. So I'm saying we can solve it only by looking for leadership, for the guru within. Guru in Sanskrit means center.
Yeah.
Gurutva means attracted to the center. Find the guru inside, and be a better person. Nobody is going to come and solve your problem. Okay? This government will come and go. And another government will come and the rubbish will still be in front of your house. You need to take a step. First, not to put rubbish there. To reduce the rubbish, to generate first. And the rubbish, don't go and put in front of your house. And if it's there, become an active citizen. Engage with the people who are co-sufferers in this story. And as a society, resolve the problem. Nobody is going to fix you. You're a twit. And even your children will stop listening to you if you're grumbling like this. That's my opinion.
Okay. And so taking this towards the artistic side, towards more of art forms, you have been into theater for 4 decades now. That's 40 years of service to an art form. How do you manage to keep the passion intact and alive and go at it every single day?
See, for a long time, I was very poor. I was always in debt. When I'm a graduate engineer. I did well in my engineering, but I didn't apply for a corporate job. I made some attempt to get into corporate companies, but I couldn't, do it because it required extra studies and all that. I had lost interest by then. And I went to the arts. I became a journalist, and I kept doing theater always. Theater never gave money. You have to spend money to do theater. And journalism paid very little. When I joined Indian Express in 1986, my salary was 560 rupees. I used to work in Sunday for a salary of 2,000 rupees. That's all I used to get, Even in the mid, towards 2000, in 1998, when I was working for the Asian Age in Delhi, my salary was some 15,000 rupees was my salary, It was very difficult. More than half of that money I paid for rent in Delhi. Delhi was very expensive.
Yeah.
I didn't feel bad that I was poor. But things began to change when I started to look for a better life for my children. And I thought I'll buy a house. And I thought I'll make my own movie. Then I began to borrow money. And when I borrowed money and I tried to run a company, I lost so much money because I didn't have the skills to run a business. I fell into distress. And I've gone through a very bad period for 8 to 10 years, in great debt. After the age of 40, I've really suffered. But before that, I didn't suffer so that much because I didn't care that much about money. I was okay to drink, when little and drink cheap rum. I was okay to do that. I didn't want a car. I was okay to have a second-hand small car when I had a family. I was okay to ride a two-wheeler for a very long time. Even now, I don't have a car. I sold the car because I've become a more sensible guy now. I don't have a car for the last 5 years. I use the local, public transport. I travel by fatwatis, auto rickshaws. I go by metro train and all that.
Mhm.
I think it is okay to manage all this if you don't care too much for money.
Mhm.
But you want to have that bungalow, have that great compound wall, and grow exotic foreign plants inside. Then you want to have that, that 4x4,
Mhm.
and you want to send your children
Mhm.
to some fantastic school, boarding school or something.
Mhm.
Then, boy, you're never going to be happy. I think, at least I was never going to be happy doing that.
Mhm.
So, if you want to do theater, if you want to follow your heart, you should be willing to take the hardship that comes with it.
Mhm.
But you'll have something else instead of hardship. You'll have two great things in your life. You'll have meaning in your life,
Mhm.
and you can have happiness that is derived from meaning. Happiness that you derive from drinking a bottle of expensive whiskey or or a soft drink, sugared soft drink. That happiness is actually toxic. But the happiness you get from doing a job well, from writing a poem, from acting well in a film, or directing a play,
Mhm.
or doing your job well,
Mhm.
or giving a good lecture, you can't beat that.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, instead of spending, like taking 5 crore insurance to safeguard your old age, I'm saying be happy till your old age.
Mhm.
You don't need to earn that 5 crore rupees
Mhm.
that you spend on an insurance company
Mhm.
or on some stupid hospital.
Mhm.
You can just lead a better life. You can be happier by doing the right thing.
Mhm. Okay. So with that, we have reached the end of this conversation. I would like to know if there's something that I may have missed asking as a question and you would have loved to answer. So please feel free to talk about it.
Yeah, please, you let me know if you want. I need to ask anything else, I'll answer. But I thank you so much. I had a wonderful conversation with you. Thank
Sure.
you so much.
Thank you so much for your precious time. It was an absolute honor talking to you, sir. I wish you all the best
Thank
for
you
all
so
your
much.
upcoming projects and please stay safe and take care.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you.